me this time. Okay, as soon as we get the word on YouTube, we will start.
Who said you made her all she is?
Yeah, I can't find that.
Like,
It's about a page and a half back from the
is it
victim.
Richard or Robert?
That's Robert. Robert Bruskley. Oh, don't talk of guilt and innocence. You have made her all that she is. A strange and wonderful personality, in my eyes at least. Richard Darkley, or I killed her.
Bottom of 195. And that-
195?
Bottom of 195 in that one.
Okay, let me mention to the video audience that we are continuing with our reading of Joyce's Exiles, which we're finding a very unusual work, shall we say. There are certainly things to talk about it, but it would not be a good introduction to the majority of Joyce's works, in my humble opinion. And as you know, I have the humblest of humble opinions. Okay. Now, all that being said,
Okay.
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 So I will start again with Robert Bruskley. Oh, don't talk of guilt and innocence. You've made her all that she is. A strange and wonderful personality, in my eyes at least. Richard Darkley, or I've killed her. Robert killed her. Richard, the virginity of her soul. Robert impatiently, well, lost. What would she be without you? Richard, I tried to give her a new life. Robert, and you have a new and rich life. Richard, is it worth what I've taken from her? Her girlhood, her laughter, her young beauty, the hopes in her young heart. Next reader, please.
I can't find where we are, so
I
why
have
don't you give me?
Okay, who reads after Katrina?
Donna.
Donna, do you know where we are?
I do, yeah.
Okay,
Bear with me.
if you would read, please.
Okay. Robert, and you have a new and rich life. Richard, is it worth what I have taken from her, her girlhood, her laughter, her young beauty, the hopes in her young heart? Robert firmly, yes, well worth it. He looks at Richard for some moments in silence. If you had neglected her, lived wildly, brought her away so far, only to make her suffer, he stops. Richard raises his head and looks at him. Richard, if I had? Robert, slightly confused. You know, there were rumors here of your life abroad, a wild life. Some persons who knew you or met you or heard of you in Rome, lying rumors. Richard coldly, continue. Robert laughs a little harshly. Even I at times thought of her as a victim, smoothly. And of course, Richard, I felt and knew all the time that you were a man of great talent, of something more than talent, and that was your excuse. A valid one in my eyes. Richard, have you thought that it is perhaps now at this moment that I am neglecting her? He clasps his hands nervously and leans across towards Robert. I may be silent still, and she may yield to you at last, wholly and many times. Robert draws back at once. My dear Richard, my dear friend, I swear to you, I could not make you suffer. Richard continuing. You may then know in soul and body, in 100 forms, and ever restlessly, what some old theologian, Duns Scotus, I think, called a death of the spirit. Robert eagerly, a death? No, it's affirmation. A death, the supreme instant of life from which all coming life proceeds, the eternal law of nature herself. So?
Richard, and that other law of nature, as you call it, change? How will it be when you turn against her and against me? When her beauty or what seems to you now wearies you, and my affection for you seems false and odious? Robert, that will never be. Never. Richard, and you turn even against yourself for having known me or trafficked with us both. Robert, gravely, it will never be like that, Richard. Be sure of that. Richard, contemptuously, I care very little whether it is or not, because there is something I fear much more. Robert shakes his head. You fear? I disbelieve you, Richard. Since we were boys together, I've followed your mind. You do not know what moral fear is. Richard lays his hand on his arm. Listen, she is dead. She lies on my bed. I look at her body, which I betrayed grossly and many times, and loved too, and wept over. And I know that her body was always my loyal slave. To me only she gave. He breaks off and turns aside, unable to speak. Robert softly, do not suffer, Richard. There is no need. She is loyal to you, body and soul. Why do you fear? Richard turns toward him almost fiercely. Not that fear, but that I will reproach myself then for having taken all myself, because I would not suffer her to give to another what was hers and not mine to give, because I accepted from her her loyalty and made her life poorer in love. That is my fear, that I stand between her and any moments of life that should be hers, between her and you, between her and anyone, between her and anything. I will not do it. I cannot, and I will not. I dare not. He leans back in his chair, breathless, with shining eyes. Roger rises quietly and stands behind his chair. Joe?
Robert, look here, Richard. We've said all there is to be said. Let the past be past. Richard, quickly and harshly, wait, one thing more. For you too must know me as I am now. Robert, more? Is there more? Richard, I told you that when I saw your eyes this afternoon, I felt sad. Your humility and confusion, I felt, united you to me in brotherhood. He half turns round towards him. At that moment, I felt our whole life together in the past, and I longed to put my arm around your neck. Robert, deeply and suddenly touched, it is noble of you, Richard, to forgive me like this. Richard, struggling with himself, I told you that I wished you not to do anything false and secret against me, against our friendship, against her, not to steal her from me, craftily, secretly, meanly, in the dark, in the night. You know, Robert, my friend. Robert, I know, and it was noble of you. Richard looks up at him with a steady gaze. No, not noble. Ignoble. Robert makes an involuntary gesture. How? Why? Richard looks away again in a lower voice. This is what I must tell you too. Because in the very core of my ignoble heart, I longed to be betrayed by you and by her in the dark, in the night, secretly, meanly, craftily, by you, my best friend, and by her. I longed for that passionately and ignobly, to be dishonored forever in love and in lust, to be. Orla.
Robert, bending down, places his hands over Richard's mouth. Enough, enough. He takes his hands away. But no, go on. Richard, to be forever a shameful creature, and to build up my soul again out of the ruins of its shame. Robert, and that is why you wish that she. Richard, with calm, she has spoken always of her innocence, as I have spoken always of my guilt, humbling me. Robert, From pride, then? Richard. From pride and from ignoble longing, and from a motive deeper still. Robert, with decision. I understand you. He returns to his place and begins to speak at once, drawing his chair closer. Robert, may it not be that we are here and now in the presence of a moment which will free us both, me as well as you, from the last bonds of what is called morality. My friendship for you has laid bonds on me. Richard, light bonds apparently. Robert, I acted in the dark, secretly. I will do so no longer. Have you the courage to allow me to act freely? Richard, a duel between us. Next, please. Tom.
Robert, with growing excitement, a battle of both our souls, different as they are, against all that is false in them and in the world. A battle of your soul against the spectre of fidelity, of mine against the spectre of friendship. All life is a conquest, the victory of human passion over the commandments of cowardice. Will you, Richard, have you the courage, even if it shatters atoms, to atoms, the friendship between us, even if it breaks up forever, the last illusion in your own life? There was an eternity before we were born, another will come after we are dead. A blinding instant of passion alone, passion, free, unashamed, irresistible. That is the only gate by which we can escape the misery of what slaves call life. Is not this the language of your own youth that I heard so often from you in the very place where we are sitting now? Have you changed? Richard passed his hand across his brow. Yes, it is the language of my youth. Robert, eagerly, intensely. Richard, you have driven me up to this point. She and I have only obeyed your will. You yourself aroused these words in my brain. Your own words, shall we, freely, together? Richard, mastering his emotion. Together, no. Fight your part alone. I will not free you. Leave me to fight mine. Robert rises, decided. You allow me then? Richard rises also calmly. Free yourself. A knock is heard at the hall door. Robert, in alarm. What does this mean? Richard, calmly. Bertha, evidently. Did you not ask her to come? Robert, yes, but looking about him. And I am going, Richard. Richard, no, I am going. Robert, desperately. Richard, I appeal to you. Let me go. It's over. She is yours. Keep her and forgive me. Both of you. Richard, because you are generous enough to allow me. Robert, hotly. Richard, you'll make me angry with you if you say that. Next.
Okay. Actually, maybe we should take a pause here. And whoever has seagulls in the background, I think the seagulls are entirely inappropriate.
Say that again, Duncan.
I think somebody has seagulls somewhere in their hearing, and the seagulls are squabbling.
Yes.
Very joyous.
Seagulls do, and I think it is entirely fortuitous that seagulls like that should appear while we're reading Exiles.
Oh, yeah. So that's me, Duncan, and I'm near the sea here. And they've been going on like that even through last night and now this evening for some reason. And it's a kind of cacophony of seagull voices. Yeah,
it's a very typical Dublin sound. The seagull. Yeah, we do live with them in the background.
As long as it's not interfering too much with the reading. Yeah.
No. I think it's great. I think it's a really good. I'm not sure what word to use, but it's like Robert and Richard talking as seagulls.
Yeah,
it's a lovely background.
It's a metaphor for the play.
I love it. It makes me feel like I'm at the seashore.
Yes.
Seagulls.
And even better, we're not outside with any food in our hands, so we don't have to worry about them attacking us.
Yeah, they're all right. They're okay. They don't do any harm.
So anyway, Lee, we're back. we're back in the thick of exiles again. And
Yeah.
I was hearing echoes of Nietzsche,
Of Nietzsche?
of Friedrich Nietzsche.
Yeah.
That there's this, it's almost like a thus spake Zarathustra
Yeah. Yeah.
thing about it. The other thing that struck me is if Robert thinks that Richard made Bertha who she is, then it raises the psychological question of who is Robert actually trying to seduce?
I thought Bertha.
Or the Bertha that is the creation of his friend Richard. It's like,
Oh yeah. 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 Yeah.
I forgot.
what did you forget?
Who it was that he was trying to seduce.
Bertha. Yeah.
Could I just slip back a bit just in the interim, if you don't mind? Back to Act 1. And there is we say occasionally that there is prescience in Joyce's readings. Now, he says here, Robert, these cigars Europeanize me. If Ireland is to become a new Ireland, she must first become European.
Yeah.
And that is what you are here for, Richard. Someday we shall have to choose between England and Europe.
Yeah.
That's extraordinary. It's
Yeah, that was an amazing piece of whatever it's called, prophecy.
Yeah. Sorry for putting in, but I just wanted to share that.
Yeah. And while we're a bit off center, can I just say something that struck me as we were reading tonight? There was a line there that he leans back in his chair, breathless, with shining eyes. Now, how on earth on a stage could an actor make his eyes shine? And if he did, how could everyone in the audience see him? And it strikes me we've got two plays by Joyce. One is the play within Ulysses, Circe. And that is full of stage instructions that could never be carried out. And it makes me think that when Joyce says he's writing a play, he's really writing a silent movie. And I know no other madman who proposes this theory, but it's always in my mind that this is what he's doing. And maybe the time spent setting up the silent movie shop in Dublin, the theatre, kind of just left him with this way of writing that he thinks he's writing. He's actually writing a script. So that's just a kind of an aside from what I'm reading.
No, that's actually very good, Joe. I mean, because that's actually an instance when something kind of like a play could actually illustrate breathlessness with shining eyes. Because, of course, with the camera work, you would bring the camera in on the person, and they would do that
with light. And you see that, but you see that in the old black and white movies all the time. You see someone in their eyes go weepy, and the camera comes in. But it requires a cinema to execute this play.
That is the one of the advantages of cinema, is because it can move in and out.
Yeah.
A play is there. If a member of the audience is sitting in the audience, they will always have that same distance to the actors.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in the cinema, because you can move the camera around,
yeah.
You can bring it in right on the face, or even right in.
You know, and you can get the actors in a month later to rerun those 10 seconds because it's not quite right, you know, and you can get it, you can cut and paste in a cinema. So it's, yes, kind of, because if you do that, I'm off message really. If you do that with Circe, it makes great sense. It's a fantastic piece of writing. If you adopt it it has to be a silent movie as well, and it works fantastically. But anyway, that's by the by, and maybe that's the answer to Exiles. You know. There you go.
I was doing a little research on it today, and I came across a quote from Joyce. He was talking about Ibsen, and it's very pertinent to his own work. He said that Ibsen, before he was 25, had essentially selected the same range of characters that he was going to write about. There were 4 or 5 chosen characters. And it struck me forcibly then in relation to Exiles. And if you take that further, even though, say, in Ulysses, he uses a whole plethora of characters, there is only a handful of main characters. So that certainly applies here in Exiles, because we're essentially talking about 4 characters.
Yeah, and we're essentially talking about the same theme as in Ulysses. So
it makes the play more interesting as you sort of delve into it. You know, I was reading to the end of Act 2 this afternoon. I was getting bored as I was reading. So then I started to do a little research, which probably did up for me quite a bit.
And it's no mistake in a coincidence that Robert has been in Rome.
Yes.
Guess who was in Rome?
Right, and going back to a point that I made in the first reading, the fact that the 2 male characters both have names starting with R, that the female characters, there's a bunch of B's, and that there's something, not quite sure what it is, but there's something being communicated by that. The confusion that inevitably arises.
And Bertha has the same, scans the same as Nora.
Yes.
Has the same what now?
It's got the same meter as Nora, and it's 2 syllables. You know, Nora.
Oh, okay.
And the husband is called Dick. That's how I remember which is which. Richard is. I have trouble to remember. I couldn't. I was all the time going back to which is the husband that I saw.
Yeah. I'm still having the same problem.
Me too. Yeah. Still have to look back.
Richard is much more didactic than Robert is. I mean,
maybe we should call them Bob and Dick.
Yeah. Or Shem and Sham. No, that's
exactly.
I wonder if Richard is a writer. Do you think
Richard is a writer? He is.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Ann Doyle, you're being thrown in the middle of this play. I'm curious as to your reaction.
Well, I thought I was the only one, because while you were all chatting, I wrote down who everybody was, so that when you're reading, I can see who is who. That one is out here. Who is who? Yes, it's intriguing. I will definitely read it later and catch up.
It is intriguing. It's very curious. I really like the point that Joe brought up about perhaps this is actually a film more than a play. And I'm still mulling over this kind of. Well, Ibsen was a little bit on the Nietzschean, Sturm und Drang type stuff too. But there seems to be a lot of this idea that they're trying to break through the walls that are hemming in their souls,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is a very Gothic European thing. I guess English too, since it was the Bronte sisters did a lot of that. Everybody's trying to break through to something.
Yeah, because it is very scandalous what's going on here. This sort of very cool conversation, or of casual conversation about who's getting Bertha. Like nobody's thought to ask Bertha her views.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yet she's joining in, isn't she? She's saying that she's free.
She's kind of playing the game as well a bit, in as much as she knows. But I don't think she's quite aware that the boys are the patriarch leaving chess pieces around the board, for a laugh.
And does she know that Richard has cheated on her many times?
I think she does. Didn't she?
Probably. Yeah. I mean, the conceit here is that Bertha is an innocent, and that Richard has manipulated her into being this new person. Which, if you think about it, even if he tried to do that, it is a conceit.
Yeah.
That you, at least my attitude is, you cannot completely manipulate anybody into being anything.
Yeah.
That each person is taking what information they glean and, doing what they will with it.
But this is a conversation at the time, that should not be held.
Yeah.
Like this is stuff that, I don't know, very expensive court cases are made out of. And there's casually saying, well, I always thought this, and well, go back to the time when, do you remember when we were young, and this sort of morality, they can't even spell morality at this stage, probably, but that must be very shocking.
Yeah, I thought we didn't have conversations like that until the 60s.
Yeah, that's right, the miniskirt. That caused all those conversations.
That's true.
Yeah,
and Gay Byrne.
Yeah, and Gay Byrne is another one. And but here are, I wouldn't say this had much chance in the Abbey of getting put on.
No. Yeats or Lady Gregory certainly wouldn't have taken it on board.
No, Kathleen Mavourneen. Yeah. And if you see it in that, then it's riveting. Every line of this must be knocking the audience off their stool.
Yeah.
So immersed in this. We don't say, oh no.
Yeah, because it would be so unexpected that anyone would do this.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, is that not how writers? What is it? This Things play that was so controversial that there were almost riots when it was put on.
There's a lot of.
We had that with Sing here in the Abbey Theatre.
Yeah, right.
Because a few girls appear in their slips with their shifts, there's a week of rioting in Dublin.
There's much the same kind of conversation going on in Two Gentlemen of Verona between Antonio and Valentino. And as I'm reading it, what you're saying about this discussion that these two are having, they're also having one that's a little ribald, shall we say?
Great word. In the introduction to my version, it says, perhaps not surprisingly, Exiles has never proved popular. Ezra Pound told Joyce in 1915 that, quote, it won't do for the stage. I don't believe an audience could follow it. I think he meant it something more deeply than that.
Good old Ezra.
Shall we proceed?
Okay.
Mm-hmm. let's get Bertha in here.
We're our lawyer.
Okay, so I believe I'm the next reader. Is that right? Tom was the last,
Yeah.
last on the chat list. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I guess I start with Robert. I acted in the dark secretly. I will do so no longer. Have you the courage to allow me to act freely? Richard, a duel between us? Robert, with growing excitement, a battle of both our souls, different as they are, against all that is false in them and in the world. A battle of your soul against the specter of fidelity, and of mine against the specter of friendship. Oh, life is conquest, a victory of human passion over the commandments of cowardice. Will you, Richard? Have you the courage? Even if it shatters to atoms the friendship between us, even if it breaks up forever the last illusion in your own life? There was an eternity before we were born. Another will come after we are dead. The blinding instant of passion alone, passion free, unashamed, irresistible. That is the only gate by which we can escape from the misery of what slaves call life. Is not this the language of your own youth that I heard so often from you in this very place where we are sitting now? Have you changed? Richard, passing his hand over his brow. Yes, it is the language of my youth. Next reader, please.
Robert, eagerly, intensely. Richard, you have driven me up to this point. She and I have only obeyed your will. You yourself have roused these words in my brain, your own words. Shall we, freely, together? Richard, mastering his emotion. Together, no. Fight your part alone. I will not free you. Leave me to fight mine. Robert rises decidedly. You allow me then? Richard rises also calmly. Free yourself. A knock is heard at the hall door. Robert, in alarm. What does this mean? Richard calmly. Bertha, evidently. Did you not ask her to come? Robert, yes, but looking about him, then I am going, Richard. Richard, no, I am going. Robert, desperately. Richard, I appeal to you. Let me go. It is over. She is yours. Keep her and forgive me, both of you. Richard, because you are generous enough to allow me. Robert, hotly. Richard, you will make me angry with you if you say that. Richard, angry or not, I will not live on your generosity. You have asked her to meet you here tonight and alone. Solve the question between you. Robert, promptly. Open the door. I shall wait in the garden. He goes towards the porch. Explain to her, Richard, as best you can. I cannot see her now. Richard, I shall go. I tell you, wait out there if you wish. He goes out by the door on the right. Robert goes out hastily through the porch, but comes back the same instant. Robert, an umbrella. Oh! He goes out again through the porch. The hall door is heard to open and close. Richard enters, followed by Bertha, who is dressed in a dark brown costume and wears a small dark red hat. She has neither umbrella nor waterproof. Next, please.
Richard gaily. Welcome back to old Ireland. Bertha nervously, seriously. Is this the place? Richard, yes it is. How did you find it? Bertha, I told the cabman. I didn't like to ask my way. Looking about her curiously. Was he not waiting? Has he gone away? Richard points towards the garden. He is waiting out there. He was waiting when I came. Bertha, self-possessed again. You see, you came after all. Richard, did you think I would not? Bertha, I knew you could not remain away. You see, after all, you were like all other men. You had to come. You were jealous like the others. Richard, you seem annoyed to find me here. Bertha, what happened between you? Richard, I told him I knew everything that I had known for a long time. He asked how. I said, from you. Bertha, does he hate me? Richard, I cannot read his heart. Bertha sits down helplessly. Yes, he hates me. He believes I made a fool of him, betrayed him. I knew he would. Richard, I told him you were sincere with him. Bertha, he does not believe it. Nobody would believe it. I should have told him first, not you. Richard, I thought he was a common robber, prepared to use even violence against you. I had to protect you from that. Bertha, that I could have done myself. Richard, are you sure? Bertha, it would have been enough to have told him that you knew I was here. Now I can find out nothing. He hates me. He is right to hate me. I have treated him badly, shamefully. Richard takes her hand. Bertha, look at me. Bertha turns to him. Well, Richard gazes into her eyes and then lets her hand fall. I cannot read your heart either. Bertha, still looking at him. You could not remain away. Do you not trust me? You can see I am quite calm. I could have hidden it all from you, Richard. I doubt that. Go on.
Oh, Bertha, with a slight toss of her head. Oh, easily, if I had wanted to. Richard, darkly. Perhaps you are sorry now that you did not. Bertha, perhaps I am. Richard, unpleasantly. What a fool you were to tell me. It would have been so nice if you had kept it secret. Bertha, as you do? No. Richard, as I do, yes. He turns to go. Goodbye for a while. Bertha, alarmed, rises. Are you going? Richard, naturally. My part is ended here. Bertha, to her, I suppose. Richard, astonished. Who? Bertha, her ladyship. I suppose that is all planned so that you have a good opportunity to meet her and have an intellectual conversation. Richard, with an outburst of rude anger. To meet the devil's father? Bertha unpins her hat and sits down. Very well, you can go. Now I know what to do. Richard returns, approaches her. You don't believe a word of what you say. Bertha calmly. You can go. Why don't you? Richard, then you have come here and led him on in this way on account of me. Is that how it is? Bertha, there is one person in all this who is not a fool, and that is you. I am, though, and he is. Richard continuing. If so, you have indeed treated him badly and shamefully. Bertha points at him. Yes, but it was your fault, and I will end it now. I am simply a tool for you. You have no respect for me. You never had because I did what I did. Richard, and has he respect? Bertha, he has. Of all the persons I've met since I came back, he is the only one who has. And he knows what they only suspect. And that is why I liked him from the first and like him still. Great respect for me she has. Why did you not ask her to come away with you 9 years ago? Richard, you know why, Bertha. Ask yourself. Bertha, yes, I know why. You knew the answer you would get. That is why. Richard, that is not why. I did not even ask you. Bertha, yes, you knew I would go, asked or not. I do things. But if I do one thing, I can do two things. As I have the name, I can have the gains. Richard, with increasing excitement. Bertha, I accept what is to be. I have trusted you. I trust you still. Bertha, to have that against me, to leave me then? Almost passionately. Why do you not defend me then against him? Why do you go away from me now without a word? Dick, my God, tell me what you wish me to do. Joe?
Richard, I cannot, dear, struggling with himself. Your own heart will tell you. He seizes both her hands. I have a wild delight in my soul, Bertha, as I look at you. I see you as you are yourself. That I came first in your life, or before him then, that may be nothing to you. You may be his more than mine, Bertha. I am not. Only I feel for him too. Richard, and I do too. You may be his and mine. I will trust you, Bertha, and him too. I must. I cannot hate him, since his arms have been around you. You have drawn us near together. There's something wiser than wisdom in your heart. Who am I that I should call myself master of your heart or of any woman's? Bertha, love him, be his. Give yourself to him if you desire, or if you can. Bertha, dreamily, I will remain. Richard, goodbye. He lets her hands fall and goes out rapidly on the right. Bertha remains sitting. Then she rises and goes timidly towards the porch. She stops near it, and after a little hesitation, calls into the garden. Bertha, is anyone out there? At the same time, she retreats towards the middle of the room. Then she calls again in the same way. Is anyone there? Robert appears in the open doorway that leads in from the garden. His coat is buttoned and the collar is turned up. He holds the doorposts with his hands lightly and waits for Bertha to see him. Bertha, catching sight of him, starts back, then quietly, Robert. Robert, are you alone? Bertha, yes. Robert, looking towards the door on the right, where is he? Bertha, gone. Nervously, you startled me. Where'd you come from? Robert, with a movement of his head, out there. Did he not tell you I was out there, waiting? Bertha, quickly, yes, he told me, but I was afraid here alone, with the door open, waiting. She comes to the table and rests her hand on the corner. Why do you stand like that in the doorway? Robert, why? I'm afraid too. Bertha, of what? Of you. Bertha looks down. Do you hate me now? Robert, I fear you. Clasping his hands at his back. Quietly, but a little defiantly, I fear a new torture, a new trap. Voilà.
What's up? Bertha, as before, for what do you blame me? Robert comes forward a few steps, halts, then impulsively. Why did you lead me on? Day after day, more and more. Why did you not stop me? You could have, with a word, but not even a word. I forgot myself and him, saw it, that I was ruining myself in his eyes, losing his friendship. Did you want me to? Bertha, looking up. You never asked me. Robert, asked you what? Bertha, if he suspected or knew. Robert, and would you have told me? Bertha, yes. Robert, hesitatingly, did you tell him everything? Bertha, I did. Robert, I mean, detail. Bertha, everything. Robert, with a forced smile, I see. You were making an experiment for his sake. On me. Well, why not? It seems I was a good subject. Still, it was a little cruel of you. Bertha, try to understand me, Robert. You must try. Robert, with a polite gesture. Well, I will try. Bertha, why do you stand like that near the door? It makes me nervous to look at you. Tom.
Robert, I am trying to understand, and then I am afraid. Bertha holds out her hand. You need not be afraid. Robert comes towards her quickly and takes her hand. Robert, diffidently, used to laugh over me together, drawing his hand away. But now I must be good, or you may laugh over me again tonight. Bertha, distressed, lays her hand on his arm. Please listen to me, Robert. But you are all wet, drenched. She passes her hands over his coat. Oh, you poor fellow, out there in the rain all the time. I forgot that. Robert laughs. Yes, you forgot the climate, Bertha. But you're really drenched. You must change your coat. Robert takes her hands. Tell me, it is a pity then that you feel for me as Richard says. It is pity then that you feel for me as Richard says. Bertha, please change your coat, Robert, when I ask you. You might get a very bad cold from that. Do please. Robert, what would it matter now? Bertha, looking round her. Where do you keep your clothes here? Robert points to the door at the back. In there. I fancy I have a jacket here, maliciously, in my bedroom. Bertha, well, go in and take that off. Robert, and you? Bertha, I will wait here for you. Robert, do you command me to? Bertha, laughing. Yes, I command you. Robert, promptly. Then I will. He goes quickly towards the bedroom door, then turns round. You won't go away, Bertha. No, I will wait, but don't be long, Robert. Only a moment. Goes into the bedroom, leaving the door open. Bertha looks curiously about her and then glances in indecision towards the door at the back. Robert, from the bedroom. You have not gone, Bertha? No. Duncan?
Perhaps we should stop again since we've gone through the reading list. Or do you want to proceed on? Is there a logical ending place here? It seems it goes on and on and on for a while.
There's not an awful lot that's happened, is there? You know.
Well, nothing has happened. It's more of a like a not a study, but I don't know what to call it. There's a word for it, but I don't have it.
We could read to the end.
It's kind of experimenting with people and their emotions and their responses and their.
I mean, the number of times you've had, "Do you hate me? Do you hate? Do you hate?" Me? You know, for over at every.
There was a point there in at some stage when before Bertha just came in, you know, and one of them said, "You go, will I go, or you go?" You know, and I was saying to myself, I wish both of them would go, like, you know.
Is that not Beckett, though? Maybe Joyce influenced Beckett from this. You know, all this, I'll go on.
Yeah.
That's a great point, Tora. We've had nearly 2 pages of "Take Your Coat Off."
Yeah. And yet there are areas where it's very lyrical. Mostly between the two guys.
Well, this is okay, well, hold on. I'm probably going too far. This is a tempest in a teapot. Everything is happening in everybody's head.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody's acting like there's going to be some grand ending. There's no fun. I mean, we're not in Texas. In Texas, the grand ending would be that Robert would take Bertha in his arms, Richard would appear and shoot them both.
Yeah.
And then he would be exonerated because it was, you know, a crime of passion.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, there's nothing that can really happen.
No.
Yet all the characters, Bertha's the most level-headed of them all. But the two guys, I mean, you know, I'm going, what do they expect to happen here?
Yeah.
Well, they talk. There's a mention of a duel that kind of like got exciting, but then it went away.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Richard's parting words to her as she left was that sorted out between yourselves. And I thought the obvious thing was that they would head for the bedroom at this stage and get it sorted. But no, they decide to have a chat about the raincoat.
Well, you know, he has to go into the bedroom, you see.
Yes.
Your coat and leave your trousers on. You know, that sort of thing. But I just say, Duncan, you got the only major speech so far that I can remember, the battle for our souls, and it was fantastic. You know, fidelity. You really felt there.
Yeah, there are
You-
times when you think it's a couple of teenagers that are chatting to each other, you know? Did you
Yeah.
tell him everything about the kissing as well?
Was he on your bicycle?
Yeah. Did he look out your window?
Yeah.
But really, she didn't have much to tell him, did she? I mean, other than the only thing that happened was, correct me if I'm wrong, Robert asked her for a kiss, and they kissed.
Yeah.
Didn't seem like much of a kiss. And then Robert asked her to meet him at this cottage, and that Robert had arranged for Richard to go and meet the vice chancellor, that this was to get Richard out of the way.
But there was a bit of foreplay to the kiss, you know. He kissed her forehead, he kissed her eyes, then he kissed her on the lips, then he kissed her in a more longing way, and then he embraced her, you know. So there was that build up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I'd love to know the layout of the cottage. It doesn't seem to have a rear entrance. You know, like if you go into the garden there's no way out except to come back into the house. You know, there are a lot of cottages like that, you know, in the formerly the outer parts of Dublin.
Mm.
And there's no lane at the back or anything like that. And so you go into the garden and it's raining, you're there for the duration.
Okay. So, okay.
What was that?
that was
Okay.
somebody trying to frighten the seagulls away.
Oh. You could almost say though that the men have as intense a relationship with each other as either one of them has with Bertha, and it's their relationship that seems to hold the motion of the place static, so
Yeah.
it doesn't move, go anywhere.
Yeah. And in fact, it's really the most intense relationship that we've encountered is between the two men.
It's between the
Yeah.
two men.
Yeah.
Right. That's why I was saying that, you know, if Robert really thinks that Richard made Bertha who she is, which I seriously doubt myself, that, you know, who is he trying to seduce?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Beginning to think there are two dicks in this, you know, two dickheads really, and Bertha sort them out very quickly.
Oh, Joe.
Oh, stop. Forgetting we're recording this.
That's okay. It's not going to get a worldwide release in reality.
Yeah, but I think maybe that's the way to follow this now. What Orla said there about Beckett. Maybe keep that in mind now, and it might begin to, you know,
Beckett is different, though.
Well, I continued to be confused after reading Dubliners and Portrait of an Artist and Ulysses and Finnegan's Wake. I'm still going, where does this fit?
yeah.
What was he doing with this? So,
Yeah.
Yeah, there are no clues as to what he was trying to accomplish.
Well, he's trying to get a name as a playwright. He was trying to have a successful play, presumably.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think he may be like William Faulkner, who wrote poetry, a lot of poetry, before he realized that he wasn't a poet.
Yeah.
And he wasn't going to get anywhere. And then he started writing short stories and went into novels.
Yeah.
But, for a long time, Faulkner considered himself to be a poet,
Yeah. Yeah.
presented himself to the world like that. So,
And that word that's we read used by Stanislaus about him, his talent for lampooning. Well, a play doesn't really let you lampoon, but I always feel like he really found his voice in the tail end of Dubliners, and then finally found it in Ulysses.
Mhm.
That ability to make to communicate that sense of humor that I think he has running here, but it doesn't come across to us.
well, I think that's because I'm going to assume that Richard is the main character, and Richard is a pompous ass. And and I'm reaching here, but I mean, Joyce has not reached the point, or maybe he lapsed. He'd reached the point in Portrait of an Artist to a certain extent, but he hasn't reached the point where he can include himself as among the subjects to be lampooned.
Yes.
That both Robert and Richard are
Yeah.
tedious and pompous,
Yeah.
is my reaction to it. That's why I brought up Nietzsche. And another thing, this is really also going far out, but there's something very Greek about this, like a Greek tragedy.
Yeah.
Although neither of the characters rises anywhere near the point of being a tragedy. They just rise to the point of being kind of tedious and weird.
I think James Joyce wrote this with the idea that there would be groups like ours all these many years later that would be sitting around wondering what the hell he was doing.
He succeeded so.
And just to compound that, he said, I'll write Ulysses and Finnegan's Wake as well. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alrighty.
We've seen Richard letting his son down and lying to him.
Mhm.
And that, and he's got all this high-minded talk to his wife and his friend. But we were not supposed to, so this guy talks a good game type of thing. He just does all the high-minded talk, but when it comes down to facts, he doesn't care about anyone, even his son. And now we're into father-son stuff. It's getting like Ulysses again. And it's getting like Greek theater again. So interesting.
All right. Well, let us proceed. Perhaps.
Was he very young when he wrote it?
This was
When he wrote this. No, when he wrote Exiles. Was
Kid-
Joyce very
Quite late. It was actually quite late.
1918.
1918. 18.
Ulysses was 1908.
So he's in his 30s.
1918.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's in his 30s, basically.
Okay.
So he's old enough to have sense,
Yeah. Have no
Well, I must
defense.
have thrown the fact that it was also the tail end, the last year, I believe, of the First World War.
Yeah.
But he wrote, I think, Portrait of an Artist before this.
That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did Dubliners and Portrait of an Artist.
Yeah.
Before this.
Maybe,
Or-
at the end of the First World War, maybe lots of men were coming home to find their wife involved with someone who had been their friend, in 1914. Something might have been topical.
Yeah, I
Yes,
think he said
he
he began to write it on notes in 1914, and he began to draft it then afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking about Ulysses.
No, Exiles.
Oh, excuse me. Yes, excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, once again, this is just throwing an idea out there, but I mean, there would have been a lot of this high-minded talk among men during the First World War.
Yeah.
as they didn't want to get down to the fact that they were just killing each other in the worst
Yeah.
possible ways. And they wanted to put a lot of high-minded ideas behind this, essentially an emotional and physical bloodletting that went on for a long time, resulted in millions and millions of deaths.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to go, I think, Robert, from the bedroom, you have not gone. Bertha, no.
Yeah.
Robert, I'm in the dark here. I must light the lamp. He is heard striking a match and putting a glass shade on a lamp. A pink light comes in through the doorway. Bertha glances at her watch, at her wristlet, and then sits at the table. Robert, as before, do you like the effect of the light? Bertha, oh yes. Robert, can you admire it from where you are? Bertha, yes, quite well. Robert, it was for you. Bertha, confused, I'm not worthy even of that. Robert, clearly, harshly, love's labor lost. Bertha, rising nervously, Robert. Oh, no, that's actually just Robert. Okay, next reader.
I'm a bit lost. So maybe we should just skip me and go on.
Love's labor's lost.
You sure?
Can you find where
I have.
Here we are.
Robert is in the bedroom?
He leads her towards the chair near the table. Did we pass that? No. He appears in the doorway wearing a dark green velvet jacket. Did we read that?
Yeah.
That much.
No.
We're not that far.
3 lines, 4 lines.
Just a little bit
Love's
before
labor's lost. There it is. Robert, Robert,
Yeah.
yes. Bertha, come here quickly. Quickly, I say.
There we
Robert,
go.
I'm ready. Okay. He appears in the doorway wearing a dark green velvet jacket. Seeing her agitation, he comes quickly towards her. What is it, Bertha? Bertha, trembling. I was afraid. Robert, of being alone? Bertha catches his hands. You know what I mean. My nerves are all upset. Robert, Bertha, promise me, Robert, not to think of such a thing. Never. If you like me at all, I thought that moment, what an idea. But promise me if you like me. If I like you, Bertha, I promise. Of course I promise. You are trembling all over. Bertha, let me sit down somewhere. It will pass in a moment. Robert, my poor Bertha, sit down, come. He leads her toward a chair near the table. She sits down. He stands beside her. Robert, after a short pause, has it passed? Bertha, yes, it was only for a moment. I was very silly. I was afraid that I wanted to see you near me. Robert, that you made me promise not to think of? Bertha, yes. Robert, keenly. Or something else. Bertha, helplessly. Robert, I feared something. I'm not sure what. Robert, and now? And now you are here, Bertha. I can see you. Now it has passed. Robert, with resignation. Past. Yes, love's labor lost. Bertha looks up at him. Listen, Robert, I want to explain to you about that. I could not deceive Dick. Never. In nothing. I told him everything from the first. Then it went on, and still you never spoke or asked me. I wanted you to. Robert, is that the truth, Bertha? Bertha, yes, because it annoyed me that you could think I was like the other woman. I suppose you knew that way. I think that Dick is right too. Why should there be secrets? Okay, I'm going to stop here.
Robert, softly. Still, secrets can be very sweet, can they not? Sorry, Katrina. You okay?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. Bertha smiles. Yes, I know they can. But you see, I could not keep things secret from Dick. Besides, what is the good? They always come out in the end. Is it not better for people to know? Robert, softly and a little shyly. How could you, Bertha? Tell him everything. Did you? Every single thing that passed between us? Bertha, yes, everything he asked me. Robert, did he ask you much? Bertha, you know the kind he is. He asks about everything, the ins and outs. Robert, about our kissing too? Bertha, of course. I told him all. Robert shakes his head slowly. Extraordinary little person. Were you not ashamed? Bertha, no. Robert, not a bit. Bertha, no. Why? Is that terrible? Robert, and how did he take it? Tell me, I want to know everything too. Bertha laughs. It excited him, more than usual. Robert, why? Is he excitable? Still? Bertha, archly. Yes, very, when he is not lost in his philosophy. Robert, more than I? Bertha, more than you, reflecting. How could I answer that? You both are, I suppose. Joan.
Robert turns aside and gazes toward the porch, passing his hand once or twice thoughtfully over his hair. Bertha gently. Are you angry with me again? Robert moodily. You are with me. Bertha, no, Robert, why should I? Robert, because I asked you to come to this place. I tried to prepare it for you. He points vaguely around here and there. He points vaguely here and there. A sense of quietness. Bertha, touching his jacket with her fingers, and this too, your nice velvet coat. Robert, also I will keep no secrets from you. Bertha, you remind me of someone in a picture. I like you in it, but you are not angry, are you? Robert, darkly. Yes, that was my mistake, to ask you to come here. I felt it when I looked at you from the garden and saw you, Bertha, standing here. But what else could I have done? Bertha quietly. You mean because others have been here? Robert. Yes. He walks away from her a few paces. A gust of wind makes the lamp on the table flicker. He lowers the wick slightly. Bertha following him with her eyes. But I knew that before I came. I am not angry with you for it. Robert shrugs his shoulders. Why should you be angry with me, after all? You are not even angry with him for the same reason, or worse. Joe?
Did he tell you about himself? Robert, yes, he told me. But we all confess to one another here. Turn about. Bertha, I tried to forget it. Robert, does not trouble you. Bertha, not now. Only I just like to think of it. Robert, it is merely something brutal, you think, of little importance. Bertha, it does not trouble me now. Robert, looking at her over his shoulder. But there is something that would trouble you very much, and that you would not try to forget. Bertha, what? Robert, turning towards her. If it were not only something brutal with this person or that for a few moments, if it were something fine and spiritual, with one person only, with one woman, smiles, and perhaps brutal too. It usually comes to that sooner or later. Would you try to forget and forgive that? Bertha, toying with her wristlet. In whom? Robert, in anyone, in me. Bertha, calmly, you mean in Dick. Robert, I said it myself, but would you? Bertha, you think I would revenge myself? Is Dick not to be free too? Robert points at her. That is not from your heart, Bertha. Bertha proudly, yes, it is. Let him be free too. He leaves me free also. Robert insistently, and you know why and understand, and You like it and you want it. You want to be, and it makes you happy and has made you happy. Always. The gift of freedom, which he gave you 9 years ago. Bertha, gazing at him with wide open eyes. But why do you ask me such a lot of questions, Robert? Robert stretches out both hands to her. Because I had another gift to offer you then, a common, simple gift like myself. If you want to know it, I will tell you. Bertha, looking at her watch. Past is past, Robert. I think I ought to go now. It's almost 9. It is 9 almost. Robert, impetuously, no, not yet. There is one confession more, and we have the right to speak. He crosses the table rapidly and sits beside her. Bertha, turning towards him, places his left hand on her left hand on his shoulders. Yes, Robert, I know that you like me. You need not tell me. Kindly, you need not confess any more tonight. A gust of wind enters through the porch with a sound of moving leaves. The lamp flickers quickly. Bertha, pointing over his shoulder, look, it is too high. Without rising, he bends towards the table and turns down the wick more. The room is half dark. The light comes in more strongly through the doorway of the bedroom. Robert, the wind is rising. I will close that door. Or
Bertha, listening. No, it was raining still. It was only a gust of wind. Robert touches her shoulder. Tell me if the air is too cold for you. Half rising. I will close it. Bertha, detaining him. No, I'm not cold. Besides, I'm going now. Robert, I must. Robert, firmly. No, there is no must now. We were left here for this, and you are wrong, Bertha. The past is not past. It is present here now. My feeling for you is the same now as it was then, because then you slighted it. Bertha, no, Robert, I did not. Robert, continuing, you did, and I have felt it all these years without knowing it, till now. Even while I lived, the kind of life you know and dislike to think of, the kind of life to which you condemned me. Bertha, I? Robert, yes, when you slighted the common, simple gift I had to offer you and took his gift instead. Bertha, looking at him, but you never. Robert, no, because you had chosen him. I saw that. I saw it on the first night we met, we 3 together. Why did you choose him? Bertha bends her head. Is that not love? Robert, continuing, and every night when we 2, he and I, came to that corner to meet you, I saw it and felt it. You remember the corner, Bertha? Bertha, as before. Yes. Tom.
Robert, and when you and he went away together for your walk and I went along the street alone, I felt it. And when he spoke to me about you and told me he was going away, then most of all, Bertha. Why then most of all, Robert? Because it was then that I was guilty of my first treason towards him. Bertha, Robert, what are you saying? Your first treason against Dick? Robert nods. And not my last. He spoke of you and himself, of how your life would be together, free and all that. Free, yes. He would not even ask you to go with him. Bitterly, he did not. And you went all the same. Bertha, I wanted to be with him, you know, raising her head and looking at him. You know how we were then, Dick and I, Robert, unheeding. I advised him to go alone, not to take you with him, to live alone in order to see if what he felt for you was a passing thing which might ruin your happiness and his career. Bertha, well, Robert, it was unkind of you towards me, but I forgive you because you were thinking of his happiness and mine. Robert, bending closer to her. No, Bertha, I was not, and that was my treason. I was thinking of myself. that you might turn from him when he had gone and he from you. Then I would have offered you my gift. You know what it was now, the simple common gift that men offer to women. Not the best, perhaps, best or worst. It would have been yours. Bertha, turning away from him. He did not take your advice, Robert, as before. No. And the night you ran away together, oh, how happy I was. Bertha, pressing his hands. Keep calm, Robert. I know you like me always. Why did you not forget me? Robert smiles bitterly. How happy I felt as I came back along the quays and saw in the distance the boat lit up, going back the Black River, going down the Black River, taking you away from me. In a calmer tone, but why did you choose him? Did you not like me at all? Bertha, yes, I liked you because you were his friend. We often spoke about you, often and often. Every time you wrote or sent papers or books to Dick. And I like you still, Robert, looking into his eyes. I never forget you, Robert, nor I you. I knew I would see you again. I knew if the night you went away that you would come back. And that was why I wrote and worked to see you again here.
You stopped reading, Tom?
Yeah, sorry, Tom, yeah.
Okay, so you have a physical copy of the play, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so are we? I actually have no idea whether we're 4 pages away from the end or
We are.
44 pages.
2 pages.
We're
Yeah.
2 pages. Oh, okay. So in that case, I will read. That's
Yeah.
what I need. Okay, Bertha, and here I am. You were right. Robert, slowly. 9 years. 9 times more beautiful. Bertha, smiling. What am I? What do you see in me? Robert, gazing at her. A strange and beautiful lady. Bertha, almost disgusted. Oh, please don't call me such a thing. Robert, earnestly. You're more. A young and beautiful queen. Bertha with a sudden laugh. Oh, Robert. Robert, lowering his voice and bending near to her. Do you not know that you're a beautiful human being? Do you not know that you have a beautiful body, beautiful and young? Bertha, gravely. Someday I will be old. Robert, shakes his head. I can't imagine it. Tonight you are young and beautiful. Tonight you have come back to me. With passion. Who knows what will be tomorrow? I may never see you again, or never see you as I do now. Bertha, would you suffer? Robert looks around the room without answering. This room and this hour were made for your coming. When you have gone, all is gone. Bertha, anxiously. But you'll see me again, Robert, as before. Robert looks full at her. To make him, Richard, suffer? Bertha, he does not suffer. Next reader, please.
Robert, bowing his head. Yes, yes, he does. Bertha, he knows we like each other. Is there any harm then? Robert, raising his head. No, there is no harm. Why should we not? He does not know yet what I feel. He has left us alone here at night in this house because he longs to know it. He longs to be delivered. Bertha, from what? Robert moves closer to her and presses her arm as he speaks. From every law, Bertha, from every bond, all his life he has sought to deliver himself. Every chain but one he has broken, and that one we are to break, Bertha, you and I. Next, please.
Bertha, almost inaudibly. Are you sure? Robert, still more warmly. I am sure that no law made by man is sacred before the impulse of passion. Almost fiercely. Who made us for one only? It is a crime against our own being if we are so. There is no law before impulse. Laws are for slaves, Bertha, say my name. Let me hear your voice say it softly. Bertha, softly. Robert. Robert puts his arm around her shoulder. Only the impulse towards youth and beauty does not die. He points towards the porch. Listen, Bertha, in alarm. What? The rain, Robert, the rain falling, summer rain on the earth, night rain, the darkness and warmth and flood of passion. Tonight, the earth is loved, loved and possessed. Her lover's arms around her, and she is silent. Speak, Iris. Don't.
Bertha suddenly leans forward and listens intently. Hush. Robert, listening, smiles. Nothing, nobody. We are alone. A gust of wind blows in through the porch with a sound of shaken leaves. The flame of the lamp leaps. Bertha, pointing to the lamp. Look. Robert, only the wind. We have light enough from the other room. About Joe.
He stretches his hand across the table and puts out the lamp. Light from the doorway of the bedroom crosses the place where they sit. The room is quite dark. Robert, are you happy? Tell me. Bertha, I'm going now, Robert. It is very late. Be satisfied. Orla.
Robert, caressing her hair. Not yet, not yet. Tell me, do you love me a little? Bertha, I like you, Robert. I think you are good, half writhing. Are you satisfied? Robert, detaining her, kisses her hair. Do not go, Bertha. There is time still. Do you love me too? I have waited a long time. Do you love us both, him and also me? Do you, Bertha? The truth. Tell me. Tell me with your eye, or speak. She does not answer. In the silence, the rain is heard, falling.
Oh, okay.
All that to end up there.
But we have a whole, how many acts do we have? We have one more act to go?
Oh, there's one more, yeah.
One more, yeah.
But should she go or should she stay? You know.
Oh, That was-
The next act takes us back to Richard Rowan's house.
Yeah.
Mary.
Oh, golly, that was so tedious.
We'll try and spice it up, Joan, for you the next day.
Thanks.
Tension at the end. You know, I was waiting for some. You know what's happening?
Nothing.
They can't stand there for the next 4 weeks or something. You know.
They said the same thing back and forth 50 different times.
Yeah.
He's trying to get her to stay.
Yes, he is. She's pretty much like, I need to get out of here.
Yeah.
She's
These
like
are-
that, did you say? She's like that or he's like that? Need
She
to get
just wants to leave. She just wants to, you know, that's it. Okay, Robert, you made your pitch. I'm going home. He can't give it up.
Probably time for the last bus.
Yeah,
I think Mr. Kennedy has the best idea, though, that this was a proto Beckett play.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you never have any of that feeling of tedium with Beckett.
yeah.
Yeah, well, that you see, that's the proto part. You know, like
Hmm.
Your cat's timing is perfect, Joan.
Yeah.
Always.
Pat knows when it's time to wrap up.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's 2:35, so we will continue. This is a 3-act play, is that correct?
Yep.
Yes.
It's a long last act.
Oh dear.
Long last one. Okay.
I think it's 500 pages long, the next part.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
So mine, Joe, is less than 17 pages.
It's 35 pages, yeah. Yeah, that's all.
We're up to it. We can do it. We can do it.
Let's finish it. Next one.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
And thank you, Don.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Duncan.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone. Good night. Good night.
Okay, I actually found where. Okay, till next time.